today. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi as we continue our march towards the start of the NFL season, which will, of course, begin, Joe, with the Eagles and the Cowboys on Thursday night.
Defending Super Bowl champ, Philadelphia Eagles. I think they have the best shot to repeat in back-to-back championships. We'll see if they can do that. Going up against their arch nemesis, the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott comes back from injury. Micah Parsons, will he be there? Won't he be there? We'll see. But at the end of the day, they're a 6.5-point home favorite in this ball game, and I think they can win it convincingly in week number 1.
Well, you know what, Joe? I think we spent so much of this offseason odds, preseason, and rightfully so. But let's talk about that number. Let's talk about a 6.5 in some spots, a 7 in others. It's a moving number as we anticipate it being. I'm curious what you think, if anything, of the spot of being the Super Bowl champion on that Thursday night in your building, banner drops, ring ceremony, the whole ordeal. Do you bake that in positively or negatively at all going into a game?
I do. I bake it into the fact that I expect Philadelphia to come out hitting on all cylinders. I think they're playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think it's a little bit different, if you're asking me, when we look at the Kansas City Chiefs, where they won a Super Bowl, and all of a sudden the following year they walked through the motions. I don't see that being the case for Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and that offense led by A.J. Brown as well. They're a physical offensive line, and they have young players on the defensive side of the ball. That's why I give them the best shot to win the NFC Championship. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Cooper DeJean, and Mitchell in the background in the secondary. I mean, they are legit. And you have Nick Sirianni, that is an underrated head coach for winning a Super Bowl and bringing his team to where they were last year. I think they're going to come out hitting on all cylinders, and I do believe they should be at least a 7-point favorite over a team in Dallas that has multiple questions to answer.
Well, that is certainly true of Dallas. I think as far as the spot goes, Joe, it's one where you know that one side of the ball is going to be as hyped as possible because you have the Super Bowl defending champion, right? For 2 years in a row, it was Kansas City. Of course, now in this spot, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. So a lot of the handicap will probably be about actually how you see the opponent. Is that opponent frisky? Are they overmatched? And you expect really big games. So we get a big game. But we get Dallas in such a different time during, I think, the Dak Prescott tenure. Typically the idea, if Dak is healthy, is the Dallas Cowboys are going to be a contender to at least win a division, make the playoffs, and then it'll vary how much someone believes in can they go deep or are they actually overvalued. This Dallas team is a little different. The defense gets no respect, and rightfully so. If Micah Parsons isn't out there for the opening game, it's maybe the worst in football. And offensively, you don't get a head coach bump because Mike McCarthy, who I thought they should move on from, I think you felt the same, Dallas wanted to bring back, couldn't find out a deal, so they promoted his offensive coordinator in Brian Schottenheimer. So you don't get a big bump from a exciting hire. Just, I know he wasn't available. Hypothetically, if they would have brought in a Jim Harbaugh, right? If the timelines worked a little bit better. Could you, if something like that were to be the case here for this football team, that's not how it played out. And you have an offense that, even with Dak, I feel last year, Joe, disappointed a lot of people. And that's how you get to a number like this. I want to stick on the number specifically, though. If Micah Parsons is in this game, as we're talking about this in the moment, we don't know if Micah will or will not be active. Does that shift the spread? You're going to like Philly regardless, I know that. But would you say 6.5s become 7.5s if Micah is not out there for Dallas?
No, I think maybe 7s we'll see. Okay. I don't think we'll get over a key number of 7.5. I don't think we'll get to that point.
Do you think it's baked in at all that maybe Micah, like maybe does it, because right now, Joe, we're seeing some 7s, right? So does this thing close 6.5 if Micah's definitively in?
I mean, divisional game to start the year. And you're going to get 7.5 in that spot, even if it is the defending Super Bowl champs. That's a huge number to lay. I mean, you would really have to see smart money come in and sharp money come in to push it to 7.5 or potentially 8. I don't think it gets above that. I think 7 is the top. We might even see maybe 6s come in a couple weeks after Labor Day. But at the end of the day, this comes down to an identity crisis for Dallas, offensively and defensively, right? You mentioned Schottenheimer. The physical offensive line where they could just run and take over games, it wasn't there. The rushing attack last year, Rico Dowdle at the helm, was inconsistent. Now you have Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. You have Schottenheimer, who potentially isn't an upgrade, to your point, with Mike McCarthy. And again, what does this offense look like with a quarterback coming off a major knee injury, right? I mean, that is the major concern. And do we have any concerns offensively about the Philadelphia Eagles? I don't. The only question is, do we utilize Saquon Barkley as much as we did and rely on him last year this year? I don't think they do. I think it's all Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts. I think the defense can make some noise, and I think they dominate this game. I really feel that Philadelphia is significantly better than Dallas in this matchup. The only thing that you would see people taking Dallas is because, you haven't had back-to-back winners, in the NFC since 2004. And, Philly could have a Super Bowl slump. Not happening in this game.
So I will say this has been the case since the game has been set, since the numbers come out. I'll likely be interested in taking the points with Dallas. But
really?
So here's one of the interesting facts of Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts. Like, you would think that's a decent rivalry. They never play against one another. One of them is always out whenever that game comes around. And I think you get enough out of Dak and Dak. You know what they're so good at, Joe? Fake comebacks. You remember last year, I want to say it was week 3, could have been week 2, I think maybe week 2, they played the Baltimore Ravens, Dallas.
Yeah, and they trailed 28-3, and they made it, 28-25. Yeah. But they gave up over 200 yards rushing to Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
And now, look, Dallas actually, I think, were like slight favorites, maybe a 1-point home dog in that football game. The point, though, is they could be getting smashed in this game, right? Let's 27-10. I mean, it's like, whoa, this is crazy. And then they get a touchdown. You're like, all right, Philly's running it. And then there's 3.5 left, and Dak is still out there. Pickens, Lamb, and it's a backdoor. This is the thing, right? Sometimes people say, if you're taking the points, you got to think they can win. That's not true. I don't have to think anything. I don't have to think for a second Dallas can win the game. I think Dallas does have a chance. I think that's the nature of divisional games, quite frankly, Joe. But a touchdown, if you just tell me, hey, you're going to get +7 in Eagles-Cowboys, more often than not, I'm going to take 7 points.
It's possible, and we've seen, I believe, Washington, New York Giants is a 6.5-point spread, similar, right? NFC East. I actually like the Giants more than I like the Cowboys in that matchup. Well, we'll talk about that later. But Jimmy Johnson ain't walking through that door. It's not. Charles Haley is not walking through that door. That defense with Micah Parsons was pathetic. They got smacked around in run support.
That's true.
You're telling me they're going to stop Jalen Hurts coming off a Super Bowl MVP? He's erased and answered all the critics. They're going to come out lackluster in the link week 1? Get real. Smash job.
Whoa! I like what you're bringing to the table. The beautiful thing is, we have props out and available for this game. Let's get an idea what the pricing will look like on the defending Super Bowl champs and what is supposed to be a high-octane offense in the Dallas Cowboys next.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Alabama, Florida State, years Georgia opened with Clemson, and then Oregon and LSU and Les Miles opened with Oregon and smacked them around. Alabama knocked around USC and Wisconsin and Va Tech. for years. The SEC fears nobody.
Stop it. I love the SEC. Put them on. By the way, if we just had an only SEC college football playoff show, it would be absolutely wonderful. How about that out there, SEC backers?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
So the Mets, they went through a rough stretch where they were terrible, but, they win the series versus the Mariners. They're kind of turning things around just a little bit. Like, the offense has been there. You said they were in a playoff race. It's tough to say, they need to win. It's like trying to trust teams in different sports at the end of the season. But the hitters are hitting right now. Lean into the Mets, lean into the Phillies. These teams have something to play for, and they're cooking right now.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
I think what you saw last year is it's tough to say, it's projectable. But I do think it's something that when you're taking shots here, you're looking for a bye-week coverage wide receiver on your roster or a guy that has upside who's young enough to grow into more of a role. I think the development of Bo Nix was stunningly good last year. If we can build on that again this year, I think Marvin Mims is a really good selection as the 57th wide receiver off the board.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
What does he do after he hits the home run? He walks over to the fan and he pats him on the back and gives him a high five. This is the same fan that's been going after him for the entire game. Dave Roberts after the game saying, hey, look, every once in a while, it's kind of funny to see Shohei, who's got this wonderful personality that we almost never see. It was great to see him do that with the fans.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Props. It'll soon be time to figure out where you alt these numbers. The real alt king. I didn't say it. Well, maybe I did. Joe Lisi with me here. Kevin Walsh, of course. We're just starting to take a look into the markets, what we have offered to us for the important game between the Eagles and the Cowboys here. Joe, I just want to start with the touchdown market. We know it's always popular to play touchdowns, and I know you usually get to the touchdown tab, and then you go like this. And you get to the bottom of the barrel there. But Saquon minus 175 and Jalen Hurts are minus 135. That's how the market begins. Does anything just stand out to you when you see touchdown prices for the Thursday night game?
A.J. Brown at plus 160. That's the one for me. I really think he's going to have a big season. I think he could eclipse 1,250 yards. I know he was a little off point, battled some injuries last year. But I told you all off season, I believe it's going to be the Jalen Hurts show, not just on the ground, but through the air. I think they limit to a degree. Yeah. Saquon Barkley, I think they preserve him for a playoff push because they do want to win a Super Bowl championship. And I think A.J. Brown could break out. Plus 160 in this matchup, to me, is great value. Whenever you get a wide receiver one in this type of matchup going up against a conference opponent, I think he could eat. And I think Philly is a significant side in this matchup. I'm not swaying in any capacity. So give me the passing attack with Jalen Hurts, but I like the plus 160. Also like Goddard, anytime you have tight ends involved in the red zone. I mean, plus 290, I believe, in this matchup.
The two things that stood out to me. First is Saquon having a more expensive price to score a touchdown than Hurts. This was something that was the case for a lot of games last year until the books realized they just can't keep doing that. Hurts is more likely to score than Saquon Barkley because Jalen Hurts scores more touchdowns than Saquon Barkley. It really is that simple. You can go to the regular season, you can go to the postseason. Hurts had 14 rushing touchdowns compared to Saquon's 13. They both had 5 in the postseason, but if you remember, Saquon had a 3-touchdown performance against Washington. There were 2 games Saquon didn't actually score in that playoff run. The other thing that jumps out to me is just clearly the book's not sure what to do yet with the Dallas Cowboys running back room. Plus 220 is the first number you'll find for Javonte Williams. Jaden Blue is plus 390, which is the same price as Miles Sanders. Now, they are a decided dog in the game. The stars of this Cowboy team, it's the passing attack. It's Dak with Lamb and newly acquired George Pickens. But still, runners come first in the touchdown market. Not the case with Dallas due to all of that uncertainty. When you look at some of the yardage numbers here, Joe, Saquon is going to be, I think, one that people just want to look at right away. And it's 96.5. Can Saquon Barkley run for 2,000 again? I don't think anybody really expects that. But is Saquon Barkley going to finish the season with 15, 16, 1,700 yards? Well, 96.5, that is something that would put him on pace for around a 1,200-yard season if he's averaging around that number.
Well, I would think Dallas, after the last regular season game, right? What did he rush for? $175 in that matchup, the game in the link?
Yeah.
So you got to believe in week one. We cannot allow Saquon Barkley to beat us in this matchup. Yep. They're going to stock the box, try to take away the rushing attack. I understand easier said than done, but with a divisional game, week number one, maybe the offensive line a little bit to some capacity has a little inconsistency. They're not as cohesive. I would lean to the under just because I need to see it in week number one. And quite honestly, I believe Sirianni and the offensive staff are going to attack over the top. Again, I think Jalen Hurts is going to make a statement. I think it is the passing attack to open up the rushing attack later in this matchup. And again, what if they have a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter and Saquon's on the sidelines, right? Again, are you going to roll him out there week number one, pounding the rock for 30, 35 times when you already have the game in balance?
By the way, the 96.5 puts him on pace for around 1,650. I was doing college math. But the season-long number is around 1,375.5 for Saquon Barkley. So you can see on a game-to-game idea, big things are expected for Barkley. I think the number that will still continue to be most tempting for Saquon whenever it does come available will be the longest run, because that was always such a tempting number, I feel, game to game. Where on Dallas are you looking? Whether it's over, under, surprised by a number, what stands out to you in the props market for the Cowboys?
Just rushing, or anything would be the CD Lamb number. CD Lamb, I believe, has to be the catalyst for that offense. Now you have George Pickens. How do they utilize him in this matchup? That's a huge question mark, because if George Pickens could take away double teams from CD Lamb, he's going to eat in this matchup. And you look at the number for CD in this ballgame, 73.5, which to me is light. Could he score and hit pay dirt? He can. I think his number was in the area of about plus 175, but I like CD to go over the 73.5. I also like, and I haven't seen it, but Saquon 12.5 in the receiving game. I mean, come on. He blows through that. He blows through that. He blows through that number. He did it in the Super Bowl. He had a 25.5 number. I mean, if we're looking outside of CD Lamb, would I take a shot on Pickens? 55.5.
You know what's interesting
He's
about
hot and
Pickens, though? We got with last year with Pittsburgh, especially when Russ took over, you were like, well, I'm going to get a big catch at some point there, right? I'm curious to see how much underneath stuff there is for George Pickens, because that's where you would expect CD Lamb to dominate for a lot of these games. So I think that becomes a really interesting MO. I'll also say this. One of the talking points for Philadelphia, if you wanted to take some knocks on this team, is they lost a number of contributors specifically to the pass defense, whether that be Darius Slay or even the ability to get to the quarterback of a Josh Sweat or a Milton Williams. But so often when they went up against the best quarterbacks in the league, they handed them their worst performance of the season, whether that was Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. So Dak Prescott, I think Dak Prescott is going to have multiple games with 300-plus passing yards this year. But you can see the 243.5, Joe. Those are mild numbers for a guy who, again, the books are projecting to trail throughout a lot of this football game.
The quarterback to wide receiver relationship is going to be critical with him and Pickens and him and Ferguson coming back off the long hiatus. How does he perform in week number one, going up against the best secondary potentially in all the NFL? That is the question mark. I like him to get paid there, though. Plus 850.
That tracks as well. We've never been more back. They're going to take a quick break here. Take a look at the NFC overall. These are two of the most important teams in the conference. What else stands out?
Here's a tip. Some machines and online games have higher average payouts than others. Want to try to maximize your odds? Well, do some research online to find games which have the highest RTP or return to player percentage. So now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Devon Acham, catfish years are really tricky. I'm not saying he's going to be on the pup list or anything like that, but it is something to monitor. And he is a small running back, and I think chasing last season is just a problem. I can't take him over Derrick Henry at the end of the first round. I think it's crazy. And Ollie Gordon's a player we talked about. Here's the preseason stats for Ollie Gordon, Matt. 26 attempts, 126 rushing yards, 4.8 yards per carry, and a touchdown.
Fantasy only on SportsGrid.
Shohei Ohtani was minus 20,000, I believe, Tom, when we were talking last week. He's down to a minus 4,000, which I still think is fun. I don't know who say, now's the time to bet the minus 4,000 here and win some money. Schwarber's a 12-1 price, Machado 10-1, Soto 200-1. It's still going to be Ohtani's award here. They're not playing great baseball for the Dodgers, but I do find it funny. Like, what is the difference between minus 20,000 and minus 4,000? Who knows? Who's got that much money to play anyway?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Arch Manning is a 7-1 price to win it. You take a look at Cade Klubnik here for Clemson. He's a 9-1 price. Nussmeier. Then we see Jeremiah Smith. He ain't a quarterback, Joe. He's a wide receiver. Love those wide receivers.
Yeah, Ryan Williams is another one from Alabama.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams will battle it out for best wide receiver, potentially leading their teams to a college football playoff.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
The NFC outlook does begin with the Philadelphia Eagles, who nearly half the number of the next closest team. You then start to see the Lions, Packers, Niners, and Rams and Commanders fill out the under 10-1 portion of this market here, Joe. I think that for Philadelphia, they have put themselves in a situation where as long as they're in the playoffs, they're going to feel like they have themselves an opportunity, because we know it's difficult to repeat within the NFC East, whatever it may be. I'm curious, beyond Philly, does anyone, positively or negatively, who really stands out to you in the NFC market?
It would be Tampa Bay, and I know it's a huge, deep shot, but it's Baker Mayfield and what they have done in the offseason solidifying the wide receivers. We know Chris Godwin potentially is still a little bit banged up, might not be there week number 1, but they have McMillan. We know about Mike Evans and what they drafted in Ibuka coming out of Ohio State. I think this team is going to be loaded offensively. They lose Liam Cohen, but I don't care. That defense stepped up at critical junctures last year. If we're talking about teams, I'm not buying into San Fran. Too many question marks. I don't know. I don't want to bet the unknown. Detroit, new offense and defensive coordinators. Do they regress? Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, great offense at times, but inconsistent and rely way too much on Josh Jacobs, especially in the playoff loss. So where do you find value? I mean, I'm high on Arizona. I'm high on them to just get to the playoffs. But if we're talking about a team to consistently win the division, consistently get better in the offseason, it has to be Tampa Bay. If we're talking 15, 20, 25-1 shot, I'm buying into Baker and Todd Bowles.
I'm a little surprised by the Tampa number, just relatively speaking.
Every year.
When you look at the NFC odds, Minnesota's in front of them. Minnesota is the third team from the NFC North in terms of the numbers there, and I'm much lower on Minnesota this year. I see some rankings out there of, just one of the 3 best defenses in football. I don't even think the defense is really all that good, quite frankly. I'm not as in on J.J. McCarthy. I'm not seeing it with Minnesota at all. So again, for Tampa Bay, a divisional favorite, you wouldn't think they would be this far down the board. I'm also still a little bit higher up. I'm surprised San Francisco has not moved more positively in the market. The Niners were perennial contenders every single year in the NFC with Kyle Shanahan, as long as they were largely healthy. Now, last year they were incredibly injured. I know they've had a lot of injuries this offseason, but it's nothing season-ending. These are all guys that are a little banged up, but they expect to still contribute, and they're going to kind of have to superstar it by committee instead of entering every single game feeling like they have the 6 best players on the field at any given moment. But San Francisco, we've heard a lot about the easy schedule, right? They're supposed to be healthier. But I don't know about you, Joe. I still do not trust Matthew Stafford holding up for a full season in L.A. I am not going to, have a goldfish brain when it comes to this. That's going to linger for me all season long, and that's a huge win for the Niners. I understand there are cases to be made on Arizona or Seattle as long shots. I get it, but the Niners, to me, feel like they should be bigger favorites in the West, and therefore they should be in front of a team like a Detroit, I think, even when it comes to the NFC outright market.
Well, if they're 100% healthy, McCaffrey's healthy, Ayuk, when he comes back, is the player that they thought, then they deserve that number. But I need to see that before I believe it. I mean, it's based all on predication, and we just guessed that they're going to hit on all cylinders week 1, through 10, and then all of a sudden be 9-1 after that time frame. I just don't see it.
For me on the offensive side, tell me if I feel as if they have a lot of guys who on a game-to-game could give them a star-level performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, again, the Niners...
And now Brian Robinson.
The Niners team that went to the Super Bowl, you had Kittle was the best tight end, McCaffrey was the best running back, Debo and Ayuk were one of the 3 best wide receiver duos in football, right? They don't have that because McCaffrey's a little more of a question. The receivers are a little more of a question. Kittle's still fantastic. But I think on a given game... Your guy, Juwan Jennings, just went for 95. Okay, wow, Ricky Pearsall just went for 84 and 2 scores. I think they have a high ceiling game-to-game from different guys. I think they're going to be tricky in the prop market. I do.
You're right about that, but I think they suffered from the Mike Tyson effect. They got sort of knocked out last year when they were high coming off that Super Bowl, and they have, are they going to recover psychologically? You could have the best team on paper, but if you're not cohesive and there's no chemistry, they have great players. Are they going to gel? Yeah. That is the question mark, and whether you buy in or not at the 6-1 number. I can't do it right now. I always reassess come mid-season. Sure. So if they're one of the best teams, I'll jump on it.
Let's get over to the Friday night game with 2 top teams in the AFC next.
NFL's heaviest player in history cut by Tampa. His name was Desmond Watson. Did you see any the highlights? His highlights were walking up and down the field as opposed to doing gassers, and that's how he was supposed to lose weight, Joe. How about that?
They really tried to get the guy. I mean, they really did. They put a lot of energy and effort trying to get this guy underweight and athletic enough to make a difference, but he just couldn't do it.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
That number last year was a loser, comfortably. Jeremiah Smith in the regular season had 934 receiving yards, 10 regular season touchdowns. He had a phenomenal, and I mean a phenomenal, college football playoff, despite only having 1 catch for 3 yards against Texas. That is how good he was in those other 3 games.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Netflix is back in a big way. They get Home Run Derby. What else is in store?
Yeah, Craig, we told you they had a great shot at it, and if they do. Now, the deal's not done yet because there's some last-minute things. However, if the deal is done, Netflix gets Home Run Derby, Peacock and NBC get Sunday Night Baseball, and they also get the Sunday afternoon package that Peacock originally had 3 years ago, and Roku's had the last 2 years.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Basically, their whole entire year is going to come down to the Ohio State game. I would be surprised if they were to lose any game leading up to that. So them to go undefeated is 12-1 in the regular season. That's a regular season play. So I think that's possible to go 12-0 at 12-1. To win the Big Ten championship, I think is a 9-1 play is a good number to take, because if they're in the game, we can hedge off of it.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Thursday, we get the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles hosting a division rival. On Friday, we get the multi-time Super Bowl champions, but coming off of a Super Bowl loss, Kansas City Chiefs hosting a division rival. Well, not hosting, but playing a division rival in Brazil in the LA Chargers. Currently a field goal number, Joe, total at 45.5. I want to start with the big Rashee Rice news that we recently heard will be suspended the first 6 games of this NFL season. What are your thoughts on the Chiefs going the first 6 without Rashee Rice?
It's the way they've been for all of last year, right? I mean, So does that offense look like...
Well, things weren't great when he was gone.
They weren't. And it was a 16-14 game the last time they played in Arrowhead. This game's overseas on a neutral field. But again, if we're talking Pat Mahomes, we're talking big picture. How big of a blow is a 6-game suspension to Rashee Rice? It's huge in terms of, just the quarterback to wide receiver relationship. You talk about Marquise Brown that never got going last year. Xavier Worthy now is the guy. And can Xavier Worthy be that pure number one, that Tyreek Hill game stopper that we think he could be, right? He's a little bit low in body size. Hopefully he could put in some pounds in the offseason, at least get up to like 175, 180, because if that's the case, I think he could be a 1,200-yard receiver this year if they utilize him in the offense. I really believe that. I think go back to the days of Pat Mahomes in Kansas City where they chucked it 45 or 50 times a game. I don't believe in the rushing attack. I still think they need a pure number one, not buying into Pacheco and the running backs by committee. But again, I think they'll be there, but they'll miss him in the first 6 games of the regular season, especially when you're looking for continuity.
So I think for Kansas City, it worked out as well as it could in that you'd rather just say, look, like you said, it's a good point. We didn't have him last year. We're kind of used to not having him. Let's not do this thing where we have him for 3 games, then we miss him for 6, then we have him again. Let's not do all that, right? I think that is well said. I do think the first 6 games for Kansas City are difficult games.
I
think, listen, this is a team who does play a first-place schedule, but I have said this. I actually think they were given a nightmare of a schedule spot week 2 hosting Philadelphia for the Super Bowl rematch, because you would think if you play Friday in Brazil, at minimum, you will not be at a rest disadvantage. They are, because Philly is playing on a Thursday night. Plus, you have that travel coming back. Remember, last year, Philadelphia, now it was a fluky loss, but they lost their game coming home from Brazil to the Atlanta Falcons in their own building. If you're Kansas City and you do drop this opening game to the Chargers, again, it is not a lock that they just beat the Philadelphia Eagles. There's no way you could view it as that. And all of a sudden, if you're 0-2, those are unfamiliar waters somewhat for Philadelphia, with a stretch of games that would still include Baltimore coming to your building, a Monday night road game against the frisky Jacksonville group, and then hosting again a team in the Detroit Lions who's beaten you before recently in this building. So I think it is a smoother result, but I don't think the Chiefs starting to say the Chiefs will start 3-3, I don't think that's disrespectful.
No.
I think that's understanding the moment.
And they have Washington on there as well. Washington and at the end in Buffalo with Josh Allen. That's not an easy schedule. I will say this, though. I think the Philly game is more important than that week 1 matchup in L.A., in Brazil. And I'll tell you why. That is a measuring stick. They got smacked around and abused in that matchup. Offense and defensive lines.
Yeah.
The revenge factor is huge in this game. Everybody's going to buy in. Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce now engaged and, looking for a Super Bowl, their final maybe, ride in the sunset. They're going to show out in this ball game. Let's say they bring their A game and they get smashed and lose it by double digits. That fear or that psychological factor is going to start to creep in. We're not the best team anymore. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. Do they go off the rails from that point? And we know that they might be the best team in the AFC, but when you lose again in a revenge spot, and let's say lose bad, and I'm talking double digits, 10, 13 points, 20 points the way they did in the Super Bowl, where they're just manhandled by a bigger, younger team. What does that do to that team moving forward throughout the AFC West? That's why I think that game 2 is more important than game 1 for Kansas City.
What I would say is I almost think it mounts, though, because I think they are live to lose week 1 to the Chargers.
Oh, absolutely. You're talking about a team that pushed them to the limit in Arrowhead last year.
So that's where, to me, if you're going into Philadelphia, I think you're so correct, Joe, in that is a game that's going to matter a ton to them no matter what. They could beat the Chargers by 1,000, and that'll feel important. But if they're now looking to get their lick back against Philly and avoid going 0-2, it adds so much. You mentioned Travis Kelce, though, and this is something that we have seen, upon the news for Rashee Rice, a lot of books locked Xavier Worthy season-long numbers. They didn't necessarily lock Travis Kelce season-long numbers. I think that's a mistake. Rashee Rice cut into a lot of the Travis Kelce work because he was taking a lot of those slant and goes and underneath drag routes. I do believe Travis Kelce is in line to have himself a bounce-back season. Travis Kelce now the last 2 years doesn't have 1,000 yards for the first time since following his sophomore year. Travis Kelce had 8 touchdowns combined over the last 2 years. The 3 seasons prior to that, he caught 32 touchdowns, a floor of 9. So I think, again, Travis Kelce has everything in the world that he could possibly want. He does not come back to just be a guy, wake me up when the postseason starts, especially you talk about the start of this season, right? Like you said, divisional game, big spot, Chargers, and then Philadelphia Eagles. I'll be looking for Kelce props early in this season.
Does he go for 300 yards over the 2 games? $150 a game? I mean, we'll see if it's the old Travis Kelce. I mean, what's a good season?
47.5 is his number week 1 against the Chargers. That looks like to me.
It does, but you're talking about a defensive-minded head coach in Jim Harbaugh that potentially could contain him. I mean, I need to see how this team looks. What is the rushing attack of Kansas City? Because that'll dictate to me whether this passing attack could get going. And I'll say this. If they're going to chuck it 50 times a game like they used to with Pat Mahomes, that can open up the rushing attack. But if they're going to try and be more balanced like we've seen at particular times last year where they start and have a 10-0 lead and then we dial it back and we want to try and run the football and then we let the opposition back into the game because we want to have a balanced offensive attack and they can't run it the way they couldn't run it against the Eagles, they're going to have a long season and Kelce might not get over the 47.5 week 1.
But I will say this from a vet, we talked value, okay? So we talked Eagles, Cowboys, and the starting number for a crowded Dallas Cowboy backfield who are underdogs in the game, Javonte Williams is plus 220 to score. Kansas City, I think the backfield's clear entering the season. I think it's Isaiah Pacheco's. Booked his favorites in the game. Plus 210 on Pacheco? Well, that doesn't make sense. Pacheco should not be the same number to score in a game as Javonte Williams. I get it's different opponents, but again, which opponent projects easier? The Chargers project easier than the Philadelphia Eagles, so that Pacheco number is a surprising one to me. The big favorite in this game to score is Amari and Hampton. I love the books, though, putting Najee Harris up there because they're not entirely sure what things will look like for the Chargers. We're going to take a break, though, on Pro Football today and zone in a little bit more on these Los Angeles Chargers because if you think about this offseason, what is the biggest injury that we've seen so far? It likely belongs to this LA team and their star tackle, Rashawn Slater. How much should that impact expectations? We'll break that down next.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
First time on a casino floor and feeling a little overwhelmed? Well, here's a tip. Lots of machines have a free demo mode you can try for practice. So give those slots a spin in practice mode before you start putting down some real cash. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Hopefully starting in 2027, where I think the schedule could just completely get blown up, which would be so exciting for the fans, the players. So there's interesting things that I've heard that that would be like one of the first things that could say that people are talking about, and that things could really get changed up a little bit.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Good news, bad news, but it's the same problem when they created this problem come draft day, right? We all knew you got too many quarterbacks. It's as simple as that. Unless one guy absolutely stinks, then you still have too many quarterbacks, because you still got Deshaun Watson, who's eligible to come off the IR this season if they really want to go down that road again.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid. This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay. I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
Chargers enter into year number 2 of the Jim Harbaugh era, and Harbaugh has been a consistent winner when he is in charge of an NFL team. I think you could make that same case, quite frankly, throughout his college career. The guy can coach. And this is a Chargers group who, I'll tell you, for me, Lisi, they were a Super Bowl pick consideration. I think once the Slater injury happened, I knew I was not going to be able to fully get there. But I still think this team, at least in the regular season, has a high ceiling. I think the schedule breaks their way. I think the defense, even if it's not loaded with stars, I expect to be good because I trust the coaching staff. And I think the offensive line will be better. I think the offensive line will still be really good. With the addition of Mekhi Becton, Alton year number 2, I think that they'll still be a solid group in that way. And I think they may have drafted the offensive rookie of the year in Amari and Hampton. This is a team that wants to run the football. I think Hampton will be much better than J.K. Dobbins was last year because Hampton is younger, more explosive, and I think he could have himself a really strong season. Ladd McConkey in year number 2. I mean, you can hear it. I'm high on this football team here. I think the Chargers, not the Broncos like the books believe, I think the Chargers are the biggest threats to the Kansas City Chiefs here in the AFC West.
It's possible, and I believe with you that Harbaugh has this team trending, right? And they overexceed expectations in year number 1. They play for a half with Houston, and then in the second half, they fall off the rails. Offensive, defensive lines break down. Herbert with the 4 interceptions put his team at a disadvantage, right? I get that. Yes, Hampton's a great running back for this offense because we know they want to predicate ground and pound, work off of play action, and at times utilize Justin Herbert. The problem that I have when I look at the depth chart and when I look at this team from a passing perspective, Ladd McConkey's great. Quentin Johnson, Stonehands, okay. Keenan Allen, aging veteran, okay. If he was that good, he'd still be with Chicago. What do you get out of this passing attack? Can Trey Harris, who's banged up now, be that guy? It's possible.
Yeah.
But is he going to hit the ground running when he is available and all of a sudden going to make up for the lack of productivity that we saw outside of pure number 1? Ladd McConkey is not a pure number 1. He's good. I mean, he's not Justin Jefferson. He's not Jamar Chase. He's not A.J. Brown. He's not C.D. Lamb.
How many pure number 1s are there? Are there only 6?
No. Is he Terry McLaurin?
He's better than Terry McLaurin.
No, he's not.
Yeah,
Come on. No, he's not. Come on. Come on.
His rookie year, he goes.
Is he Malik Neighbors?
Well, Neighbors is a special
Is he
football
Brian
player.
Thomas?
I like Brian Thomas. a lot.
Here we go. But then add him to Jace and Justin Jefferson and all the C.D. Lamb, A.J. Brown.
I think Ladd McConkey's one of the 15 best receivers in football. That feels high to you?
He's there. But again, they're going to double team him.
So this is my thing with their pass catch room, and I'm going to be honest. I am saying it with a smile because I understand. I'm not giving up on Quentin Johnston.
Oh, come on.
I'm giving up on Quentin Johnston.
Come on.
Hey,
You got don't throw it. Don't throw it, please. Don't throw it. Don't throw it. No, you can't throw it to the guy.
This guy had 8 touchdowns last year.
Oh, come on.
Round 1 pedigree.
How many games did he have the ball hit him in his face and he dropped it? And then everybody tweeted out all offseason, Harbaugh coaching up Quentin Johnston. And all of a sudden they show like 4 drops in the precinct. I can't. No way.
Here's the thing. I still believe he's got round 1 pedigree. He was great at TCU, man. He really was.
He was.
And
See, he was one of the reasons why he beat Harbaugh
I know.
in the semifinal.
He's trying to he keeps shaking him. He's like, explain to me how you guys won that game. You can't catch the ball. Here's what I think, because I guess I'm a little bit higher on Ladd McConkey than you. Okay?
No. I love Ladd.
No, you don't.
No, I love Ladd.
You're
But
low on Ladd.
he's not Jamar Chase.
Nobody thinks that's not the bar. That's not the bar.
All right. So
no one thinks Ladd's the best receiver in football.
Okay. AJ, is he as good as AJ?
AJ Brown's a top
CD
4 receiver
Lamb.
in football.
CD Lamb.
CD Lamb's a top 6 receiver.
Where's Neighbors and Brian Thomas?
I think Brian Thomas is a top 8 guy. I think Neighbors a top 12 guy. I think Ladd's in that range.
DK Metcalf.
I take Ladd McConkey.
Oh, come on. Come on. No way.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Nah.
What about...
all right. Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, give me Ladd McConkey.
You're nuts.
No, really?
Come on. Are we serious? I love Ladd, but he's a pure number 2.
I don't know if he's a pure number 2. He's looked like a pure number 1 last year to me.
I'll say this. If we're looking big picture,
yeah,
that's why.
197 in that playoff game.
Nico Collins. Who do you want?
Nico Collins, a really
I just
good
named
football
about
player.
20 wide receivers.
No, you
better,
didn't. You named like 6 guys.
Come on. I'll go through the list.
No, I listen. Again, so I'm the Ladd guy. You're low on Ladd. You don't think he's a good football player. You're low on Ladd McConkey.
No.
No, yes.
I think he's a cut under where those other guys are. I think he's a great number 2. And again, he is the number 1 on this team.
Yes.
But that's because they don't have a pure outside threat.
But here's what I would say about the other guys. I think that they have more depth now. Okay? Look, they don't have the Chase Higgins combination. Okay, I understand that. But
I could keep going.
Go ahead.
Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle.
I really like Tyreek. He's better than Jalen Waddle. No?
Really?
Look at the production.
St. Brown.
No, Amon-Ra's really good.
Puka. I mean,
Puka's
come on.
special.
I just named 15 wide receivers
I
better
said
than Ladd
he's like top
McConkey.
15.
Please.
He's like top 15, I think.
He's top 32.
Well, that's
all right.
you're low on him.
No. He's Hunter Renfrow 2.0.
Oh, wow. There you go. Julian Edelman, Wes Welker. All these guys get treated the same. Don't you think, though, between Johnston, Keenan Allen, Trey Harris, a round 2 pick, how about Keandre Lambert-Smith?
Yes, if Trey Harris is the key. Because
what do you think about Justin Herbert? That's really the question. Is this guy a top 6 quarterback, top 10 quarterback?
Top 15. I'd say that. God. No, but because, again, I don't think he's better than Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. I could keep going. I'll tell you what, I put him right at number 10 in that area. I don't think he's elite. I don't. He's a compiler.
I have no problem with top. You're like, look, I think he's top 15, not better than Lamar. You mean a top 3 quarterback. I'm just saying.
I'll go through the list.
All right, at some point you're going to get these Lisi lists, I promise you. Let's do an AFC overview, Pro Football Today.
This is the moment every fan waits for. The countdown's over. The road to kickoff has begun.
Play is here to stay.
I'm not going to name names, Kevin.
From win totals to player props, from division races to MVP debates, we've got eyes on every camp and data feeding 24/7, breaking down every angle across the league. Every pick, every edge, every line that matters. SportsGrid. Your road to kickoff starts now.
The Pirates use that thing, Joe. It's like once every 15 years, we'll hope for the perfect storm with lightning in a bottle, then we'll try to rebuild it again. Enough, man. In this day and age, with the prospects that you can certainly have by stinking every year and top-flight talent like you see in Paul Skeens, it's just a shame, and it gets on my nerves. Like, for me, being a Phillies fan, I think it's hilarious. Like, I never want Pittsburgh to be good. Why? Not because it's a rivalry. It's just a team you don't have to worry about in the playoffs, and your team can make the playoffs.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There's no way you're going to have a team with 63 wins and two other teams with 55 and probably another two that are between 49 and 52. So there's got to be some pullback a little bit, right? Under 62 and a half wins for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Pro Football Today crew getting you ready for the start of the NFL season. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi. We talked through the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Chargers. Those are your weekday primetime games. We talked a little NFC overview. What about the AFC, Joe, which starts not with the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills booked both in front of KC. Do you think that is appropriate from the books?
No, not at all. Until you knock off the big boys, you can't put Buffalo and Baltimore ahead of Kansas City and Pat Mahomes. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Again, until they prove they're worthy in a playoff environment of knocking off Kansas City and Andy Reid, I can't do it. I don't care on paper. They look more complete than Kansas City right now. They have a quarterback that led his team to a Super Bowl last year, and all he does is go to AFC championships. And more times than not, wins them and beats the head-to-head against Lamar and against Josh Allen. How could you bet against Pat Mahomes in this type of situation?
I think that is the tough thing, because we can talk roster, schedule, whatever it might be, but if you've bet Kansas City to win the AFC championship every year since Mahomes, I mean, you're in the title game every year. He's never not in the title game, so it's hard, I think, occasionally to justify where those teams are. I'll say I am more in on Baltimore than Buffalo. The sell, I think, for Buffalo is what's supposed to be an easy division. They don't have that next level contender, right, where Baltimore deals with Cincinnati. The Chiefs deal with either the Chargers or the Broncos, depending on, what your flavor is. You have to go back way farther to find that next cut of team from the AFC East. I just think this Ravens roster, Joe, is as good as the Philadelphia Eagles, if not better. And this is the one thing that I believe, and I think we're all allowed to have these beliefs. I think Lamar Jackson is going to win a Super Bowl. I believe at some point Lamar Jackson is going to win a Super Bowl. I think he is too good. I think the situation that he is in this year in Baltimore is the best of his career. So from that respect, do I wish if I was getting better number on the Ravens? Yes. But I don't disagree with the numbers on the Baltimore Ravens.
No, I understand why they're there. You're talking about a two-time MVP, and if Mark Andrews catches the football, maybe they knock off Buffalo. Maybe it's a different type of situation. Sure. But I just go back to 2 years ago where they had home field. They had Pat Mahomes and that team dead to rights for the most part. Entering that game, the offensive game plan, and it fell apart, and all of a sudden they lost that game. And again, in a playoff environment, if we're talking about all three quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Pat Mahomes, whether they be at home or on the road, which one more times is just basically that blind bet? It's Pat Mahomes because he's done it. And again, you know, this team in Baltimore, for me, yes, they're complete, but they might not be the best team in the division. Might be Cincinnati, especially. I'm just saying if they start fast. Now, defensively, I know they have question marks, but again, we're talking about a quarterback in Joe Burrow that has a winning record against Pat Mahomes, and when healthy, they're just as lethal as all three of those football teams.
I mean, Cincinnati is the team that you find tied for the fourth best odds in the AFC. They have the fourth best odds to be the number 1 seed in the conference. The questions around this Cincinnati group, a lot of it, you know, it's the defensive side of the ball. They figure out getting Trey Hendrickson in. They figure out getting Shamar Stewart in. This team cannot. Here's the thing. Last year, man, they lost close games consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost to Kansas City, both losses to Baltimore. Forget, early season losses to New England. Like, this team has to be able to close the deal. And it's a full, all three levels game, right? Like, I think McPherson missed some kicks, pass interference calls. It's not all like, oh, Burrow can't win close. I'm not saying that. But this is a team who has to be buttoned up from the word go, because there is not a lot of margin for error when you evaluate not just trying to win a division off of the Baltimore Ravens, but, of course, Joe, trying to just make the playoffs in the AFC is a very tricky thing to do.
They've regressed. They went to a Super Bowl, lost. They went back to an AFC championship and lost, and then he missed out on the playoffs.
2 years in a row.
This is not a team that is just looking to get a wild card.
Right.
This is a team that is built with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Chase Brown, and now Joe Burrow. That's healthy, that says we're as good as anybody in the conference. We need to win it now. Otherwise, our window of opportunity may have passed.
I think you said it right. You cannot believe that you have the best quarterback in football in your building and not have Super Bowl aspirations. That to me is as simple as that. There are a lot of teams, though, who feel they have Super Bowl aspirations, and throughout this NFL season, we will figure out who is right and who is wrong. For Joe Lisi, I'm Kevin Walsh. This is Pro Football Today, getting you ready for the start of the NFL season right here on SportsGrid.
Playing online blackjack and want to try upping your odds? Well, here's a tip. Cheat cards tell you statistics for whether you hit or stand on every move. If you're into stats, this could be your ticket to winning. And it is totally legal. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The Pirates use that thing, Joe. It's like once every 15 years, we'll hope for the perfect storm with lightning in a bottle, then we'll try to rebuild it again. Enough, man. In this day and age, with the prospects that you can certainly have by stinking every year and top-flight talent like you see in Paul Skeens, it's just a shame, and it gets on my nerves. Like, for me, being a Phillies fan, I think it's hilarious. Like, I never want Pittsburgh to be good. Why? Not because it's a rivalry. It's just a team you don't have to worry about in the playoffs, and your team can make the playoffs.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The NFL has ruined the concept of trade requests. It's not real. It's just a negotiating tactic. I'd appreciate reporters changing the language, because in the NBA, when a player requests a trade, they get dealt. In the NFL, nobody actually thinks it matters. If Jacoby Myers is going to buck that trend, and if Jacoby Myers is going to get traded, we'll see where he goes.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Hopefully starting in 2027, where I think the schedule could just completely get blown up, which would be so exciting for the fans, the players. So there's interesting things that I've heard that that would be like one of the first things that could say that people are talking about, and that things could really get changed up a little bit.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.